I got to win. If you can do high. Yeah. I'm a fan now. Well, guys, yeah, well, everything here, they turn it on. Good James did.
Yeah, I need just one big bag. Everything. You know,
Probably Casper, you're okay. Oh no, hey, I got me another girlfriend.
I didn't know I was in it. I can't even put an air on. You need to go. I didn't wear it, I didn't. Yesterday, I couldn't make it. And then I used to put it on ice and he was
Hey, see, look, I'm the bachelor. I'm so they are in the final round. Or it could be my club. That could be from yeah, that's weird. I want to love that. Is this you? Yeah, he's coming here, but he'll want to know what's going on.
Marky moves up in the world. Moved up in the world.
Yeah. I got both.
How are you? They want to teach money. And then it's like, hey, which one money is it? Uh-oh. And Mr. Jameson was trying to turn it on. Well, is it cool? He just turns it off. I think it's a breakfast.
Or is it for nostalgia?
I don't think it's terrible.
Is it for nostalgia?
It's like one of those thermometers you put on the wall.
Helps you kind of.
We have a thermometer. And, you know, it was connected to us and your baby church. Lady said, what's so much better? I told him, what church you do this?
But it definitely is here now. Here? Yep.
Oh, great.
Did you pray for it?
You don't know what it is.
You gotta pray for Matt.
Pray to remember what he did.
Yeah, you gotta tell Mr. Jameson because he was trying to turn it on.
He doesn't know what he did.
That's not exactly what you want to say. Just reboot it.
Right, Mortal Kombat. Use the Jaguar first, aren't you? And use the Jaguar. Well, for instance, you wait for an arcade. There's a place over here called Nerd Alert, and they got a whole old games like your crossing right up here.
Okay, so Nerd Alert.
Yeah, and then they got like Pac-Man. They got.
I might choke with an
Well, you have faith that you are undefeated.
I am undefeated.
Well, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that yet. Well, maybe you and him have a war. You get one of those giant ones that you have $500. You can play forever. Oh, it's Dead Sea is one, but it's like all these old video game systems. They're like the big giant ones. Because the players out there, and they have 300 games on it, and they bowling and like Final Fight.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Adrian, would you lead us in a word of prayer before we start our class?
Father in heaven, thank you so much for waking us up this morning, find our way, make our way here. The intentions of our hearts to be here, to serve you, to worship you, to learn more about you. Pray you'll bless the teaching that goes forth, that it will be in truth, and that we will grow and be edified by it, edify one another. I pray for those that are in need this morning, that you will serve their needs and allow your word to enrich their souls. Thank you for your divine help. We pray for that help now. And we just ask you to be with us during this time. In your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. So before we get started, I wasn't here on Wednesday, but I hear we had some homework. Does anybody want to give kind of an update on the homework? The homework was writing somebody's name at the top of your lesson and trying to reach out to them, open up a study, or possibly invite them to church. Right?
My person I wrote was my next door neighbor, Landis. And I only saw him yesterday. He was mowing his grass, and he was on his riding lawnmower. I didn't want to interrupt him. He was wearing headsets, and it might be dangerous for both of us. By the time he got done, I got back out there, and he was gone. So I'm going to try to give him another shot. I'm thinking I'm going to wait until we get the flyers that Ryan talked about this morning for the Bring a Friend, and that'll give me, I'm going to talk to him some more before then, but I definitely want to use that as an icebreaker. I think that's one thing to think about. That's coming up on the
25th.
5th of August.
It's a good idea. Hey, we're inviting a friend on August 25th to our church. Here's a flyer.
Yeah,
If you can make it, we'd love to have you. Pretty easy there.
I've got kind of similar situation, next door neighbor that we'll work on, but been watching for her. Just hadn't seen her since Wednesday night. I usually see her every day, it seems like, but I've not seen her since Wednesday night. So we're going to stay after her and try to catch her outside, because that's where we have most of our conversations.
Right.
But, so that's an opportunity we're looking for, and I know that there are others who have looked for opportunities, and they hopefully have taken advantage of some of the opportunities they've had since Wednesday night. But I'd like for us, if you don't get them this week, let's write their name down above lesson 11. And if we don't get them then, we'll write them down above lesson 12. So we've always got that in our mind, that I need to do something. And if I don't do something, if I make no effort, maybe it might make us feel a little guilty.
Yeah. Yeah, and those flyers that we get made up, that icebreaker will be a lot easier to invite them.
Yeah, and the invitation cards we keep talking about, make one of those, it's like a little business card, and give it to them. The Invite a Friend Sunday is going to be a great thing, because I'd like you to come. It's our Invite a Friend Sunday, so now they're like, well, you consider me a friend. But yeah. Sorry.
There we go. Yeah. So keep those in mind that you can talk to and reach out to. All right, we are in lesson 10 today, page 42. Everybody got a lesson book? We've got a couple extra up here. Oh, you got one. Good deal. All right, so true or false? A lot of members seem to fall through the cracks. That's how we open it up. What do we think here? True?
Yes.
I have an example of how this came to life for me. When we were living in St. Louis, I've been serving as an elder maybe 6 or 7 years. The other two fellows I was serving with have been ever since the church was established there for like 25 years. So we were talking one day about some folks that had fallen away, and one of the elders said, I'm going to put together a list of all the people who've fallen blown away since we started. Holy cow. We were a congregation about 130 then. He had a list of about over 100. So what we did, and this is something I think I'm going to talk to the elders here about, thinking about this. What we did then was we found out which ones are still living in the area, and we contacted them, and a couple of them came back. Now they've been gone for 10 years. So the point is it happens everywhere. And we can get with Neil or Phil and say, how many can you come up with? And they'll probably come up with a lot of people that have been here, but I don't mean gone out of town, but they quit in the church. I was surprised at the number. I couldn't believe it.
How can we keep that from happening?
You have to make them feel wanted, and I think hospitality could come into play in that.
Yeah.
Stay engaged with them. They need to know we care.
Well, let's put it this way, and they're right. If we don't show we care, we're definitely going to lose them. And even when we do show we care, and we have some examples of recently here where we've shown someone a lot of attention, and they still were influenced by the world. So you still have that can still occur, and that's discouraging. But I can guarantee you, if you don't show them that you care, they're going to leave.
That showing that we care does not come from one or two people. That comes from a congregation of people.
Yeah.
That's not a burden that one or two out of 200 can carry.
Yeah, as the church grows and gets bigger and bigger, we didn't plan it out like this, but we had our group meetings this morning to help us stay in touch, help us to build relationships, help us to keep informed of each other. So our groups help, and we'll talk about our groups. And back to what Brian said a minute ago, I keep a hard copy of the directory. So I always say, hey, yeah, and I'll talk about our website towards the end. But we have hard copies of our directory, and so through the past 4 or 5 years, I'll occasionally pull out the 2020 hard copy directory, and I'll look through it, and I'll say, oh, they've moved to somewhere else, or if you wonder what Brian said, how many are still in the area? How many have just stopped coming, or maybe worship somewhere else, but are in the local area that we can reach out to and invite them back? That's a good idea, Brian. All right, so Brother Goodall opens us up with new converts, and he gives us an example of being had or surprised, right? So tell me what that means, being had. Tricked. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll give you 2 examples. So if you ever go to an island or a foreign country, I was walking around and down the street to the market, and a little kid would put a bracelet on me, and he'd say, "It's yours. You can have it. You can keep it. It's free." And then they would ask for a tip, right? And so you would say, "Well, I didn't have any cash on me that day." And so after I said, "Well, I don't have any cash on me," then they take the bracelet off, right? And so I was like, huh, right? So there's that example, and then there's also one recently. I still think about it. It's still funny, to me. When we bought our last house, big yard, and there was a riding lawnmower covered up outside, right? So I immediately thought, well, whoever, the owner of the house cuts the yard with this lawnmower. I have a push mower currently, but the riding lawnmower, hey, let's put that into the contract, right? So goes into the contract. They say, hey, yeah, lawnmower's yours, no big deal. All right, everything's fine. Summertime, time to cut the grass, and then go and pull off the cover to the riding lawnmower. Let's just say I don't think there was a key to it. The battery didn't start. It was junk, right? So I always think I didn't look under the cover, right? I didn't check it out, and I still laugh about that to this day. Just like, check the mower. I think it's funny, but anyhow, our brother Goodall goes into this being had. I think he mentioned, after dinner, hey, everybody, they invite you into the living room, and hey, I got this. Let's talk about some kind of sales pitch, life insurance, a vacation, whatever. I don't know. But he goes into this example of being had, or basically being surprised or tricked. But what he's leading to is the idea of showering someone with love and attention until they're baptized. And then they may feel, after that event, they may feel alone or have questions, right? So in that aspect, once someone gets baptized, what can we do to help build relationships with them?
Same thing you were doing before they were baptized.
That's right. Yep. Build a relationship with them, talk to them, invite them, open invitation. And I'll always go, I think back to when I was baptized. I was handed 10 days after you're baptized. It's a DVD, right? They handed me the 10 days after you're baptized. Has anybody know what that DVD is? You watch it one day at a time for 10 days. And it's just, I'm sure it's virtual now. We used to have a stack of them here in the back. But anyways, that individual is going to go through a change, right? They're probably going to have questions, and we're here to help them and guide them. And that video, I can think about that. Remember, day one, I'd watch it, and then the next day, day two, I'd watch it, and it would tell you about living your life as a Christian and essentially changing, right? You're going to go through a couple of changes, and that really helped me. But Lee, you hit it right on the head. How can we help them? We build a relationship with them, keep the communication open, and show them love. So somebody grab 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 through 7.
Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. Does not puff up. Does not behave rudely. Does not seek its own. Does not provoke. Thinks no evil. Does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. All things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things.
Thanks for reading that. Yeah, so we show them love, invite them, open up the communication, stay in touch with them, check on them, and always ask them, how's their Christian walk going? Helping them along the way, answering any questions that come up, because a lot of questions come up, and just being there to talk to them. I think that's the key. is just being there to talk to them and help them figure out whatever questions they have and help them along the way. And I started thinking, you know, there's an example, and I'll read it here in a second, of Paul. You know, well, actually, let's just jump right into this. I love this story. So I'm going to go to Acts 16, and this relates to our lesson. Acts 16, starting in chapter 12, or Acts 16, starting in verse 12. From there we traveled to Philippi, a Roman colony and the leading city of that district of Macedonia, and we stayed there several days. On the Sabbath, we went outside the city gate to the river, where we were expecting to find a place of prayer. We sat down and began to speak to the women who had gathered there. One of those listening was a woman named Lydia, a dealer in purple cloth from the city of Thyatira, who was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to respond to Paul's message. When she and the members of her household were baptized, she invited us to her home. If you consider me a believer in the Lord, she said, come and stay at my house. And she persuaded us. Right? So they met Lydia, baptized her, spreading the gospel. And then what happens to Paul and Silas? They're thrown in prison. And 16 goes on about that. Then they find out they're Roman citizens. The officers reported to the magistrates, and when they heard that Paul and Silas were Roman citizens, they were alarmed. Right? So they're about to get their get out of jail free card. And then it goes, they came to appease them and escorted them from the prison, requesting them to leave the city. Verse 40. After Paul and Silas came out of the prison, they went to Lydia's house, where they met the brothers and encouraged them. Then they left. So, what a great story. They convert Lydia outside the gates. Next thing you know, they're thrown in jail. I don't know how much time has passed between them meeting Lydia and them getting out of jail. But after they get out of jail, where do they go? Great story. What can we learn from that example?
Don't trust everybody.
Don't trust everybody. Okay.
I think your work's not done ever, really. You know, they just want to show that even when someone has converted, there's still work to do after that.
Perfect. Yeah. Great comment. Awesome.
Hospitality here on the part of Lydia immediately. You know, after she was baptized, she asked, you know, hey, come stay at my house. But then after they went through the persecution, these men had been beaten, they've been stopped, they've thrown in prison. And you know, so here she's got these two jailbirds coming out of prison. Hey, I'm going back to my house.
Yeah. Yeah, what I took from that is they can depend on each other. You've got Paul and Silas, and then you've got a new convert, and they're dependent on each other, building the right relationship.
And the jailer, he, you know, not only were they baptized in his household, but then they had a meal with them also, and treated their wounds.
Wouldn't surprise me to find out that the jailer was at Lydia's house.
Right.
Because he said they went to Lydia's house and encouraged the brethren, which would have included the jailer and his family.
Yeah.
Looks like that church in Thyatira started off with a pretty good core group.
Philippi. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, good comments. All right, let's carry over to page 43. The ins and the outs. are mentioned here. Who are the ins and the outs?
Well, in high school, that would have been the cool kids, the rest of us.
That's right.
What about introverts and extroverts? Do that work too?
Yeah, people that are different, yeah. Yeah, it says the ins were those who were gifted with good looks, personality, good intellect, and popularity. The outs were those who were considered somewhat slow, perhaps socially awkward. Of course, the in crowd felt the outs were quite as attractive as they were, and not once would the ins ever be interacting with the outs. Unfortunately, the same type of relations exist in some local churches today. Somebody grab 2 Corinthians 10:12.
While we dare not class ourselves or compare ourselves with those who commend themselves, but they measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves are not wise.
All right, thanks for reading that. So we have a verse there on comparison. Who said comparison is the thief of joy? Any takers? Throw out a guess. Roosevelt? Teddy Roosevelt? We also have Galatians 2:6. As for those who seem to be important, whatever they were makes no difference to me. God does not judge by external appearance. Those men added nothing to my message. Right? So we hear that in Galatians, and then whenever I read into this, I'm always we're going back to the Old Testament here, follow me if you will. 1 Samuel 16 verse 7. 1 Samuel verse 16 verse 7, or chapter 16 verse 7. And I've got this one highlighted in my Bible. If you don't have it highlighted, maybe highlight it. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at things man looks at. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. The Lord looks at the heart. So that's what we read in Samuel. Then we get into groups in the church. We call these cliques, right? It's more of the ins and outs. He gives us a couple examples here. There's a family group, a leadership group, business acquaintances. He also gives us another list. I'll read this. It says, when cliques, real or perceived, exist, it is rare that anyone else outside the clique is invited. Those who don't fit in really feel left out. Here are some examples: widows, bachelors, single parents, the handicapped, the unlovely couple that don't fit in socially, families that have several small children, and those whose mates are not members, those of a different race sometimes get left out also. There's no malice or intended ill will, but those left out watch as the cliques congregate in the aisles to announce whose house they are going to, or they hear how good somebody's chili was last week. Once perceives that he is not wanted, no amount of persuasion will get him to accept an invitation, right? So I think it goes back to open invitation for all. We have several events here that we do as a church that everybody's invited to. The one that comes to hand is the crawfish boil. Everybody, every year we can do that, we will do it, and anybody can come, and if you want to bring your friend, hey, you know, I love that. To name a couple others, there's the wares every Easter. Kids love it. Kids have a blast. My kids look forward to it every year. It's the Easter egg hunt, and they're going to get a gold and a silver egg. And by the way, there's like $5 in the gold egg, and $3 in the silver egg. Something like it could be. It's changed over the years, right? There's probably $10 in the gold egg now, and $5 in the silver egg. But our kids love it, and they go crazy in the backyard looking for these golden eggs. So that's always a fun time. I'm sure there's others that we do. Those two just come to mind. But what are other ways we can bring everybody together? And like I said, we didn't plan I guess this lesson on the group meeting, but we're setting the next group event for our group to get to know each other and fellowship together. We'll probably do some singing in our next group meeting. But what are some other ways to bring the congregation together?
Well, normally at my granddad's church, they didn't have a choice because they used to be daycare. But nearly every third Sunday, they have a congregational meal in the gym. And then sometimes they go over there because evidently they say visitors are free. So you get a free meal, and then you say, but there's not a whole lot of kids at the congregation, though. Like, most of them are left because there's only like 5 or 6 kids, or so it's the Woodland Hills.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then evidently there's a few kids, but then like when VBS comes, like they came like a few weeks ago, and like there were like 50 kids. So they had like a get together or something, because like every third Sunday they always have they always bring food in and people pay for it. So yeah.
With a church this size, if everybody's here, we're around 250 or so. It's hard to get everybody together, and there's a lot of things that are going on in everyone's lives that are important. And so sometimes, the events you talked about, those are great. We see 60 to 100 people coming to those, and that's wonderful. But I think the thing that we also need to do is try ourselves to make sure that we practice the hospitality, and whether it's taking someone out for a meal or it's having it in your house, but not just the same people. And that's where the quote cliques form. And I'm not saying that you won't be more comfortable with some people than you are others. You have common interests and so on. But we all have one thing that's in common here, more importantly, and that's Christ. It's like I've said before, I probably wouldn't know anybody in this room, and you all probably wouldn't know me or Yvonne if it weren't for Christ. I mean, most of us here, except unless we're family, blood family, we probably wouldn't even know each other, but we do. But we actually, I think, do a pretty good job of getting to know each other very well. But you do that by making a concerted effort to put yourself out and have folks over.
Yep. Good comment.
I agree with what he said. I think those big events don't compare to the smaller events that you have with brethren. because the congregation this size is so impersonal, especially when you've been to a congregation that's much more intimate. You know everybody and you feel like family. I mean, when they got out of prison, people who got out of prison go to their family. And so when they left and they went to Lydia's house, they obviously considered her like family, even though they weren't blood biologically related. Once they were in Christ, they were family above the biology. And I feel like that's it's important that we focus on the intimate ones because the cliques, in our experience, I mean that's usually what deters somebody from coming back to a congregation is, you know, it's impersonal, how impersonal it is because somebody sits on this side or sits on that side, they don't get along around to this side, or it's hard when it's this big because you can't meet everybody every Sunday. And those new people who don't meet you after a year or two, it's like, well, maybe they just are not fond of us for whatever reason. You're left to your own devices in your mind, and before you know it, it's like, well, let's go visit somewhere else. And let's go see about this congregation because that family aspect is what's important while we're here. Because especially if we're supposed to be, if we think we're going to be together in heaven, we should be able to get along while we're here.
Yeah, good comment.
Along those lines, as human beings, a lot of times we assume the worst. And if somebody doesn't speak to me, then they don't speak to me again. They don't speak to me again. And you see them speaking to other people, well, they must not like me. And that's what we assume. You know, it may not be the case at all, but a lot of times we go there as human beings and assume the worst. And that goes both ways. You know, he never talks to me. How often do you go talk to him? You know, the road travels both ways.
Yeah, two-way street, right?
Alan, when we were up in Iowa, we had churches about 100. And so it was just two elders at that point. And me and Larry, for our theme that year was practice hospitality. And so we encouraged every member or every family to have a family over once a month. And me and Yvonne got 8 of them. We didn't make it 12 months. We had one person, and it was a single man that did it. He had 12 families over, which was kind of embarrassing a little, but it was good to see that he did it. But I do know this: people did make a concerted effort, and there was a lot more closeness at that time too. And we laughed a lot, especially the one guy that had everybody over. That he's the only one that completed it.
Yeah, I will tell you that is something special. That if you have a family over, you know, it's 8 o'clock at night, you're drinking that cup of coffee or having that bowl of ice cream, and you really get to know somebody, and maybe they open up and they're willing to talk about, you know, break that surface, you know, and go a little deeper, and you find out more about their lives and you share more. That brings you closer together. That's what family does. All right, so we've got a little bit of time left. Looks like a couple more minutes. So I just want to throw out some things. So we have our group meetings today. One idea that I just wanted to share with y'all is what we're probably going to do is instead of meeting at somebody's house or going to a restaurant and get together, we're going to do Hinton Park. If you made it to the Nichols going away party, Hinton Park was a great location. There's an open field. There's a huge tree that has shade. So our idea for our next group meeting is probably just to bring your own food and hang out at Hinton Park from 6 to 8. And we're going to grab some songbooks and sing some songs and do that for a couple hours. So I just want to throw that out there. Also, Sunday nights. Always think back to when we had service on Sunday night, and now we don't. So that's a good opportunity or a good time to meet with your Christian family. And then I also want to throw out the app, right? Congregate Members app, right? So if you have a cell phone, basically what this does is it takes our website and puts it in app form. So if you have iTunes, you would go there. Or if you have Google Android, you'd go to the App Store and you'd say, okay, Congregate Members. It's an app that you would download, right? So you have it on your phone. And then you go to eastshelby.com. If any of y'all need help with this, just let me know. I can help you set it up. If you have issues logging in, we can fix that as well. But this is just a great tool. Well, you go to eastshelby.com or whatever our web address is, and you copy and paste that into Congregate Members. Use your same password for the website, and you have updates from the church going through the app. And one of the great things about it is you also have a message center. There's a message center in there. So if you wanted to send out information, you can do it by group. We have the groups in there. We have men only groups, and we used to have a men only group that got together, but women only messages that you can communicate with your Christian family. And if you decide, hey, let's set something up, there's the tool right there. Pick a day, get your information together, boom, pop it in there, send it out, make it happen. Everybody can do that. All right. Next up, we've got lesson 11 on Wednesday. I'll be teaching that class. If you don't have a syllabus, we got a syllabus up here for you with our schedule. All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
I'm not computer. Maybe a little bit, not much.
You did a good job.